essential too. Not just the wealthiest among us, not a president who fights his fellow Americans rather than fight the virus that's killing us and our economy. It's the people who put their own health at risk to care for the rest of us. They are the MVPs. The nurses and the doctors, the utility workers, truck drivers, and grocery clerks, the child care workers, the parents, the teachers, the mail carriers, and the auto workers. So many of these essential workers have lost their lives to COVID. Nearly 1,000 healthcare workers, more than 170,000 people across America, including a 5-year-old girl named Skylar from Detroit, whose mom is a police officer and dad is a firefighter. Generation after generation, our nation has been defined by what we do or what we fail to do. So, for Skylar, for her parents, and in the memory of all those we've lost, let us act. Let us heal as one nation. Let us find strength to do the work.
I've been down this road before. I remember every tree, every single blade of grass holds a special place for me. And I remember every town and every hotel room and every song I ever sang on a guitar out of tune. And I remember every night your ocean eyes of blue, how I miss you in the morning light, like roses miss the dew.
We, the people, means all the people, even those with whom we might not agree, even those we might not expect to see at a Democratic convention. But Joe Biden is a guy who has earned the respect he commands across the world and across the aisle. The stakes in this election call for that kind of leadership. We have to think about more than one party. We have to think about the very core of our democracy. And that's why you're about to hear from some unexpected voices.
I'm Governor Christine Todd Whitman. What am I doing here? I'm a lifelong Republican. My parents were introduced at a Republican National Convention by their parents. That's how far back it goes. But this isn't about a Republican or Democrat. It's about a person decent enough, stable enough, strong enough to get our economy back on track. A person who could work with everyone, Democrats and Republicans, to get things done. Donald Trump isn't that person. Joe Biden is.
I'm Meg Whitman. I'm a longtime Republican and a longtime CEO. And let me tell you, Donald Trump has no clue how to run a business, let alone, and this is simple. I'm with Joe.
Hi, I'm Susan Molinari. I'm a former Republican member of Congress from New York City, and I've known Donald Trump for most of my political career. So disappointing, and lately so disturbing. Now, I've also gotten to know and work with Joe Biden on issues related to women that are so important to all of us. Women in business, violence against women. That's why I'm so proud to call him my friend and honored to join in supporting his candidacy for president. He's a really good man, and he's exactly what this nation needs at this time. Now, I'm delighted and honored to introduce a former colleague of mine, the former congressman from Ohio, the former governor of Ohio, John Kasich.
America is at a crossroads. Sometimes elections represent a real choice, a choice we make as individuals and as a nation about which path we want to take when we've come to challenging times. America is at that crossroads today. The stakes in this election are greater than any in modern times. Many of us have been deeply concerned about the current path we've been following for the past 4 years. It's a path that's led to division, dysfunction, irresponsibility, and growing vitriol between our citizens. Continuing to follow that path will have terrible consequences for America's soul because we're being taken down the wrong road by a president who is pitted one against the other. He's unlike all of our best leaders before him, who worked to unite us, to bridge our differences, and lead us to a united America. I'm a lifelong Republican, but that attachment holds second place to my responsibility to my country. That's why I've chosen to appear at this convention. In normal times, something like this would probably never happen, but these are not normal times. I'm proud of my Republican heritage. It's the party of Lincoln, who reflected its founding principles of unity and a higher purpose. But what I have witnessed these past 4 years belies those principles. Many of us can't imagine 4 more years going down this path. And that's why I'm asking you to join with me in choosing a better way forward. I believe the best of America lies ahead, but only when we rediscovered our shared belief in the United States of America for our children's future, which can be bright, hopeful, and inspired if we choose to make it so. I've known Joe Biden for 30 years. I know his story of profound grief that has so deeply affected his character. I know Joe is a good man, a man of faith, a unifier, someone who understands the hopes and dreams of the common man and the common woman, a man who can help us to see the humanity in each other. He knows that the path to a restored and rejuvenated America lies in respect and unity and a common purpose for everyone. Yes, there are areas where Joe and I absolutely disagree, but that's okay, because that's America. Because whatever our differences, we respect one another as human beings, each of us searching for justice and for purpose. We can all see what's going on in our country today and all the questions that are facing us, and no one person or party has all the answers. But what we do know is that we can do better than what we've been seeing today, for sure. And I know that Joe Biden, with his experience and his wisdom and his decency, can bring us together to help us find that better way. I'm sure there are Republicans and independents who couldn't imagine crossing over to support a Democrat. They fear Joe may turn sharp left and leave them behind. I don't believe that, because I know the measure of the man. It's reasonable, faithful, respectful. And you know, no one pushes Joe around. Joe Biden is a man for our times, times that call for all of us to take off our partisan hats and put our nation first for ourselves and, of course, for our children. When America chooses the right path and pulls together, like we've done so many times before, we can dream big dreams, and we can see the top of the mountain as a United States of America with a soul that is a beacon of freedom to the entire world.
Hello, my name is Terry Williams, and I've been a Republican for all of my adult life.
A lifelong Republican.
Republican. A lifelong Republican.
I've been a long-standing Republican, and I'm telling you.
In November.
I'm supporting Joe Biden for president.
We need a positive leader, someone who can work with both sides, Republicans and the Democrats.
I don't think we can deal with the type of person we have in the White House any longer.
Vote America. That's the only way to get out of this. And Joe Biden is just the person to ensure we get our lives back to normal.
Joe Biden is a decent man with a long history of public service to America.
He will restore order and integrity to the executive branch.
I would strongly encourage all of us to come together
and hopefully return our country's political discourse back to some measure of normalcy and decency.
I'm absolutely sure he's going to help us bring this country together once again.
And now, from Alabama, Senator Doug Jones.
I'm Senator Doug Jones from the great state of Alabama. Growing up in the South meant growing up in the midst of stark divisions. But it was here in Alabama where Rosa Parks helped ignite a movement by refusing to give up her seat on a bus, where freedom riders of different races came together in pursuit of equality. And it was here in Alabama where John Lewis marched across a bridge toward freedom. From a young age, I knew the hope that comes from seeing good people work to heal our divisions. It's what led me to become the United States Attorney, where I convicted 2 Klansmen who murdered 4 young black girls in a 1963 Birmingham church bombing and delivered long overdue justice. I'm standing in front of an exhibit dedicated to their memory. Alabama has shown me that even our deepest divisions can be overcome because each of us want the same thing, to be treated fairly and given the same opportunities and the freedom to live with dignity and respect. Now, some politicians try to pit us against each other, but I believe that Americans have more in common than what divides us. And in November, we have a chance to elect a president who believes that too. I've known Joe for more than 40 years. I met him as a wide-eyed law student, and he's been my friend and champion ever since. The Joe I know is exactly the leader our country needs right now. He can bring people together to find common ground while standing up for what he believes is right. After years of bitter partisanship, he can unite our country and get things done for working families and everyone looking for a better future. Because it's not about what side of the aisle we're on, it's about whether or not we're on the side of the people. The great John Lewis would often quote the old African proverb, "When you pray, move your feet," and then challenge us to do just that. As a nation, he said, if we care for the beloved community, we must move our feet, our hands, our resources to build and not tear down, to reconcile and not to divide, to love and not to hate, to heal and not to kill. In the final analysis, we are one people, one family, one house, the American house, the American family. Vice President Biden understands that, and he is who we need as our next president.
Here we are on a Monday night in 2020, and we need to talk about the post office, the U.S. Postal Service. It is central to so much of our lives. Veterans count on the post office to get their prescriptions. Social Security beneficiaries count on the post office to get their checks. Grandparents depend on the post office to send birthday cards to their grandkids. Small businesses need the post office to do business. And guess what? The post office is also one of the ways we cast our votes. To find out how to exercise that right this November, whether by mail or in person, text VOTE, V-O-T-E, to 30330. And here to say more is the first Latina elected to the United States Senate, Senator Catherine Cortez Masto.
Hello, I'm Senator Catherine Cortez Masto from Nevada. This year, more Americans than ever before are going to vote from rooms just like this, marking their ballots at the kitchen table and exercising one of our most fundamental rights from home. But despite what the president says, voting by mail has been a secure, proven option for decades. In 2016, 33 million Americans voted by mail. Even Donald Trump has requested an absentee ballot twice this year. This fall, some Americans will choose to vote in a voting booth with a mask on, while many of us will choose to vote by mail. My home state took the advice of scientists and medical experts and listened to the people of Nevada to put in place a vote-by-mail system, so voters have a lot of options this fall. But Donald Trump is trying to divide us by undermining that right. He has threatened to withhold federal funding to Nevada because of our vote-by-mail system. That's funding our schools and seniors rely on. He has challenged us in court with a meritless lawsuit, one that our Republican Secretary of State has asked the judge to dismiss. And now he is putting the lives of Nevada's seniors at risk by trying to defund the post office. Here's what that means. Seniors won't be able to get their prescriptions because he wants to win an election. Well, Mr. President, Nevada is not intimidated by you. America is not intimidated by you. We are united by shared values, shared history, and shared rights, including our fundamental right to vote. And this fall, we will send Joe Biden to the White House and will flip the U.S. Senate. With Mitch McConnell out of power and a Democratic majority in the Senate, we will expand voting access and protect voting rights. To do this, America, we need you on our side. So go to joebiden.com right now to chip in, and then head over to flipthesenate.com to help us take back the Senate. Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell know how to divide. but we know how to stand together and turn this country around.
This year we had an historic field of presidential candidates, an historic number of women, including our vice presidential nominee, Kamala Harris, more candidates of color than any primary ever, and the first openly gay man to win a caucus. This party, the Democratic Party, welcomes everyone, encourages everyone to lead, and invites everyone's ideas to ensure this country builds back better. This is what our next speaker believes too, Senator Amy Klobuchar.
Okay. Hello, America. Like my friend Catherine, I believe that the right to vote is fundamental and the post office is essential. You know, the president may hate the post office, but he's still going to have to send them a change of address card come January. Donald Trump just happens to be in my state today, trying to divide people instead of responding to the pandemic and the significant needs of our economy. But Democrats, independents, and yes, many Republicans have had enough of his divisiveness. Tonight, my friends, in contrast, we've heard a lot about how we can unite as Americans, about our shared values, our shared dreams, how we've come together in the face of crisis. But I want to be clear. Unity isn't about settling. It's about striving for something more. It isn't the end, it's the means. It's how we get stuff done. Unity is about reaching up toward a higher purpose, a better future for all of us. E pluribus unum, out of many, one. It is more than a motto. It is the North Star for our democracy. Now more than ever, we need a president who will unite this country. We need a president who, in George Floyd's memory, instead of using the Bible as a prop, will heed its words, to act justly. We need a president for the workers who've lost their jobs because this administration is selling American workers out when we need to buy American. For the farmers and manufacturers and the people of rural America who are sick and tired of reaping what he's sown. We need a president who will look out for the seniors like my dad, whose families now visit them through glass windows, never knowing if it will be the last time they see them. We need a president for all of America. I come from the middle of this country where we believe in people joining together to solve problems. We seek common ground to reach higher ground. That's been Joe Biden's life's work. He's a man of scrappy, working-class roots, a man whose own hardships have only made him more determined to lift up those who have been left out. He understands redemption, and he knows resilience. Joe Biden's a man of deep experience. Barack Obama, better known tonight as Michelle's husband, he leaned on Joe for his strength and decency, and you can too. You know, most candidates, when they end their campaign, that day is a hard one. For me, it was a moment filled with great joy, because the day I ended my presidential campaign was also the day I endorsed Joe Biden. Joe ran for the same reasons I did when I announced my campaign in the middle of that blizzard on the banks of the Mississippi River. To cross the river of our divides, to bring this nation together, to be a president for all of America. As I said the day I endorsed him, if you feel stuck in the middle of the extremes in our politics, if you are tired of the noise and the nonsense, you have a home with me, and you have a home with Joe Biden. That's why I was so proud to stand with him then and across this great country. That's why we are all now standing united behind Joe and my friend Kamala. Our nation's motto is out of many, one. And as you're about to see, it's also the story of the Democratic primary. Thank you, America.
We all ran for president motivated by the same reasons.
As I watched President Trump divide this country more and more, I thought to myself, what are you willing to do to stop him?
You had the most destructive hateful, racist president in the history of this country, who is literally tearing apart the fabric of the United States of America.
Donald Trump is a failed business person and desperately failed us as a president.
We will run!
I ran for president because I think it's urgent that we heal the divisions in this nation.
We are still in control of our own future. And we need to provide millions of Americans a real path forward.
A green jobs program.
Increasing the minimum wage.
Passing a national paid leave bill.
Student loan debt.
Mental health, starting with our veterans.
Reproductive justice.
Economic justice.
Racial justice.
And there is so much a new president can do to bring us together.
It's time to get up. Get back.
Starting a presidential campaign is daunting. I mean, you have to reach hundreds of millions of people.
You have these incredibly long days, often capped off by these evening events that go on for hours and hours.
Your challenge as a candidate is to be true to yourself and true to why you ran in the first place. That is something, by the way, that I really admire about Joe Biden. He really is his own man. He knows who he is.
Joe Biden is somebody who deeply cares about people who are marginalized, who are being left behind, who are being ignored.
I'm a DACA recipient, and I owe you everything. Thank you so much.
And you're staying, man.
You know, he's had some hard times in his life. He's had some losses in his life. And I think that is something that people relate to.
You doing okay?
Yep, close to 15 years cancer-free.
God love you.
Well, I was at a service for 4 fallen Afghanistan soldiers, and I saw those families who were so comforted by Joe Biden. When they walked out, they knew someone cared for them. Someone could relate to their own pain they were having. We need that in the White House.
I still remember standing side by side with him on the debate stage, and we were having a go of it. But what was remarkable to me was in the commercial break, he puts his arm around me and starts telling me how good my ideas are. And next thing you know, I feel like he's giving me a pep talk and literally telling me how important it is, how really important it is that I'm on that stage.
Joe called me the night I suspended and was extraordinarily gracious and comforting, and he told me I should be proud of myself, said that I did myself and my family a real service and the country a service, and that meant a lot coming from Joe.
Look, it's not easy to unite the Democratic Party. We're a rambunctious group. Joe Biden has pulled it off.
He wants to get the best ideas on the table so we can move forward in the best way possible.
He's included my Family Bill of Rights.
He has unified our group around a clean energy strategy.
The Domestic Workers Bill of Rights, I'm very excited that that's in there.
He's the kind of leader that brings other leaders in.
This is a guy that's going to walk into the Oval Office and not have to find his way around, but it will actually walk in and have already sort of honed the instincts you need to lead the most powerful nation on earth through a crisis.
On the other side, Donald Trump does not understand who we are as Americans. He really doesn't.
This is a guy that blames everyone for everything. You know, he blames the city of Baltimore. He blames the country of Denmark. He blames the Prime Minister of Canada for cutting him out of the Canadian version of Home Alone 2. Who does that?
There are no sidelines. There's no sitting this one out. There's no hoping that someone else is going to come in and save the day. There is no cavalry. We are the cavalry.
The moment has found the person. That person is Joe Biden.
Joe has my vote because he will bring decency and dignity back to the White House.
We've got one shot to make Donald Trump a one-term president, and that shot is right now.
It's showtime! It's showtime!
Next president, right here.
We understand that things are tough right now economically, but if we're going to beat Donald Trump in November, we need your help. If you're able to go to joebiden.com and chip in $5, $10, whatever you can, to fund the change we need to save our democracy, because every bit matters, and it's going to take all of us to make this happen. And no one knows that more than our next speaker, the Biden-Harris campaign's co-chair, Representative Cedric Richmond from New Orleans, Louisiana.
Think about the places that make your neighborhood feel like home. The barbershop, where you can catch up on the latest neighborhood news while you get your hair cut. The restaurant, where they know your order by heart. Or this art studio, where a creative guy with a great idea and a ton of hustle turned an abandoned building into a second home for the entire community. You know, economists will tell you that small businesses like this one are critically important to our recovery. But they're also just plain important. Without them, the places we call home just wouldn't be the same. That's the thing Joe Biden understands that Donald Trump never has and never will. When we talk about the economy, it's not just about the stock market. It's about whether you can find work that really means something to you, instead of feeling like you're supposed to be grateful just to get a paycheck. It's about whether people who didn't inherit millions from their parents can build a business from the ground up and have a real chance to compete. And it's about whether in the richest country on earth, everyone, including women and people of color, feel included and empowered. Economists will also tell you that Joe Biden's plan to rebuild our economy will create millions of jobs. But Joe will tell you that his plan is about more than that, because he's seen the world from a different perspective than most politicians. He knows what it's like to live in a real neighborhood, not just penthouse apartments. He knows what it's like to take the train to work, not just a chauffeured limousine. That's why he looks at our economic challenges the same way working people do. And he'll solve them in a way that puts working people first. Joe Biden respects America's workers because he truly understands the dignity of work.
You know, it was mostly small talk when we first met. When I would collect his ticket, and as time went on, I learned more and more about him as our friendship grew. I think he's most comfortable around everyday working class people. It just always makes you feel like you belong.
For more than 30 years, Joe Biden took the train to work. As a single dad, he promised to be home to kiss the boys every night and then make them breakfast in the morning.
When he got on the train, everyone seemed equal to him. He had time for everybody.
Joe was a regular. He bought rounds of coffee for fellow passengers and crew, and he got to know the people he traveled with.
These guys broke their necks. They're always rocking, keeping their balance, collecting tickets, help people with their bags that were heavy as hell. And they're doing this for hours. And we became really good friends.
He was very interested in my life, my children. As time went on, my grandchildren. People don't do that today. People don't even take time out to say hello or nod their head to the average working person. They looked at us like we were important people.
He would treat the conductor the same as he would the President of the United States. That is what Dad taught us, that everybody deserves to be treated with dignity and respect.
After Joe became vice president, he cut down on his commute, but he kept in touch. When Greg Weaver had a heart attack, he got a phone call.
I was in a barbershop in New York City, and the phone rings. And sure enough, it was Vice President Biden asking me how I'm doing. He wanted to know the whole story. It's kind of funny that you're talking to the Vice President of the United States, but if I would have told them people in the barbershop, I don't think they would have believed me. I'm not saying it like it was me and I was anything special. Everybody was special to him. We have heroes all over this country, and a lot of the essential workers out there that we don't even see, that are behind the scenes. They're keeping this country going. He understands that. The average guy is important to him. The average guy is important to him.
Good evening. Our great nation is now living in an unprecedented moment. We're facing the worst public health crisis in 100 years and the worst economic collapse since the Great Depression. We are confronting systemic racism and the enormous threat to our planet of climate change. And in the midst of all of this, we have a president who is not only incapable of addressing these crises, but is leading us down the path of authoritarianism. This election is the most important in the modern history of this country. In response to the unprecedented crises we face, we need an unprecedented response, a movement like never before, of people who are prepared to stand up and fight for democracy and decency and against greed, oligarchy, and bigotry. And we need Joe Biden as our next president. Let me take this opportunity to say a word to the millions of people who supported my campaign this year and in 2016. My friends, thank you for your trust, your support, and the love you showed Jane, me, and our family. Together, we have moved this country in a bold new direction, showing that all of us, black and white, Latino, Native American, Asian American, gay and straight, native-born and immigrant, yearn for a nation based on the principles of justice, love, and compassion. Our campaign ended several months ago, but our movement continues and is getting stronger every day. Many of the ideas we fought for that just a few years ago were considered radical are now mainstream. But let us be clear, if Donald Trump is reelected, all the progress we have made will be in jeopardy. At its most basic, this election is about preserving our democracy. During this president's term, the unthinkable has become normal. He has tried to prevent people from voting, undermined the U.S. Postal Service, deployed the military and federal agents against peaceful protesters, threatened to delay the election, and suggested that he will not leave office if he loses. This is not normal, and we must never treat it like it is. Under this administration, authoritarianism has taken root in our country. I and my family, and many of yours, know the insidious way authoritarianism destroys democracy, decency, and humanity. As long as I am here, I will work with progressives, with moderates, and yes, with conservatives to preserve this nation from a threat that so many of our heroes fought and died to defeat. This president is not just a threat to our democracy, but by rejecting science, he has put our lives and health in jeopardy. Trump has attacked doctors and scientists trying to protect us from the pandemic, while refusing to take strong action to produce the masks, gowns, and gloves our healthcare workers desperately need. Nero fiddled while Rome burned. Trump golfs. His actions fanned this pandemic, resulting in over 170,000 deaths and a nation still unprepared to protect its people. Furthermore, Trump's negligence has exacerbated the economic crisis we are now experiencing. Since this pandemic began, over 30 million people have lost their jobs, and many have lost their health insurance. Millions of working families are wondering how they will feed their kids, and they're worried that they will be evicted from their homes. And how has Trump responded? Instead of maintaining the $600 a week unemployment supplement that workers were receiving and the $1,200 emergency checks that many of you received, instead of helping small businesses, Trump concocted fraudulent executive orders that do virtually nothing to address the crisis while threatening the very future of Social Security and Medicare. But the truth is that even before Trump's negligent response to this pandemic, too many hardworking families have been caught on an economic treadmill with no hope of ever getting ahead. Together, we must build a nation that is more equitable, more compassionate, and more inclusive. I know that Joe Biden will begin that fight on day one. Let me offer you just a few examples of how Joe will move us forward. Joe supports raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. This will give 40 million workers a pay raise and push the wage